What's up, everybody? Jim Cavell here from Influencer, and I have Shannon Terry from On3 and our special guest for this new episode of LeverUp podcast, and that's Will Levis, quarterback for the University of Kentucky. And Will, we're recording this the day after your big game, your big win down in the swamp. You're now 2-0 against Florida. You beat them up in Lexington last year. And you were going to get into your story, but I got to start. Like, how you feeling right now off to a 2-0 start with a big win like that under your belt?
Feels good. Obviously, you want to take it 1 week at a time, but we knew we had that big one in week 2 down at Florida, and we took care of business week 1. But as soon as that game ended, we focused our focus kind of right onto Florida the week after that. But I mean, we've been game planning for them since the start of fall camp, and our offensive coordinator and all of our coaches have been thinking about what we wanted to do and how we were going to handle the game. And so glad we were able to go down there and take care of business.
No doubt.
Hey, so we were talking before we got started. Tell everyone what time you got home last night. I think everyone finds this kind of, off, this kind of stuff really fascinating. What time did you get home?
I didn't get into my apartment here until about 3:15 a.m. last night, and it was just funny because I mean I had all these people back here on campus telling me like, "Oh, you got to come celebrate. You got to come here. You got to do that." And I was like, not gonna happen. Like we're not gonna get back here till late. But I mean, we celebrated on our own on the plane back and got here, got our rest, and got in the facility and got what we needed to do today to get ready for next week. But hey, that's how it is.
Awesome. I guess I'll kick us off here. So, Jim and I talked about you this week, and the thing that kind of really came up was that you're a different cat, no pun intended. Entrepreneur focus. You come from an entrepreneur family. You've really done a really good job on the education side. NIL coming to fruition now has to be just an absolute dream for you. Someone that takes entrepreneurship and performance on the field at the same time with the same veracity. So talk a little bit about that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been someone who's wanted to make sure that I am doing the best that I can and being the best that I can be in all parts of my life, whether it's my academics, my athletics, my social life. Getting to college, wanted to be in the business school and really just got into finance because it was kind of the hardest program that I could get into, and I wanted to take on that challenge. But I kind of took it head on, and being a business mind, it's something that's always, I think, come a little easier to me and just kind of how I'm wired. But when the NIL opportunities came into play, I knew that I was going to be able to use kind of my mindset and how I'm wired to my advantage to make the plays and to use the field in the best way possible to make sure that once I leave college, I can look back and make sure that I did it right. And there's definitely some kind of trials and tribulations throughout the whole process, but it's been a lot of fun. And throughout all the people that I've been connected with and all the people that have helped me along the way, I've made clear to them that I want to be kind of in tune with everything that's going on with me and the deals or just the different kind of situations that have been brought to the table for me. And that's been really fun for me because of my background in finance and kind of just how I'm wired and how I just want to make sure that everything that I do, I'm doing to the best of my ability.
I mean, here's the thing, Shannon. Like, I met Will for the first time. I think it was 2018, Will, and I was at Penn State speaking to the football team. Coach Franklin had me in. You guys had just added Influencer. And, from that moment through even 2020, we did some things on Zoom together to help raise money for a nonprofit initiative you were working on at State College. You've always been an initiative taker. Some other things have fallen into place with NIL happening to come to fruition the same year you become QB1 at Kentucky. But in your head, you always really believed you were QB1. You believed in yourself to be QB1, and you pursued that belief all the way to a transfer portal decision that brought you to Kentucky. But it's all kind of culminated in the last like 18 months. And so just talk about that aspect. I think a lot of people don't understand, like, your journey is part of your maturity and your ability to handle big moments like last night in the swamp, and your ability to also not let NIL overshadow the main thing, which is, of course, being the leader of your team. Like, there's a lot of things that have been bred in you to get you to this point today that have really made you who you are.
Yeah, it's kind of like how coaches tell you that when your moment comes to you, you got to be ready for it, you know? And I kind of had the mindset and the confidence that I was going to be a starting quarterback, and I was going to be the one to lead my team and to be the guy, and to lead the organization, the team to big wins. And regardless of the situation that I was in, whether it was the fifth string quarterback or the second string quarterback or the starting quarterback, I always carried myself in the same way. And I always made sure that I kind of had the right mindset. And I think I've just improved in that mindset ever since I started college as well. And for me to get the opportunity to go out and to get the job and to be kind of that leader that I'd always wanted to be. I mean, everyone wants to be a leader, but I always tried to be one, whether I was the second string or the last string, like I said. But it becomes a little more real, and it becomes a little more different when you actually are kind of named that starter, and you're put in that position to really go out there and to be the guy that your team turns to. And when that opportunity came to me, I knew that I was ready for it because of how I kind of prepared for that moment. And Jim talked about how we met early in that year at Penn State, and even though I wasn't in the position that I am now as a starter, he helped me kind of realize that I needed to carry myself and to build my brand in a way so that when the big moment came to me, that I was able to capitalize on that, both as a player and as an influencer on the social platform as well. And throughout the years, I've kind of been able to realize how to best represent myself on that front. And it's been even more important with how NIL has developed throughout the past year. And I'm very grateful for those opportunities.
Will, you're obviously leading the Cats on the football field. How are you leading as it relates to NIL in the locker room? Because I'm sure a lot of your teammates are coming to you. You know, talk a little about how that's working.
It's very, very important as the person on the team who is not probably, but definitely getting a little more attention on that side than other people as the starting quarterback, and as someone who brands probably see with my following or just with my place in the scope as someone who they might want to have represent their brand. And I have to understand that there are people on the team who aren't going to get those same opportunities. And when the NIL rules came into place, there were those questions about how it might affect locker rooms, how some guys might be getting deals that other guys think that they might be deserving of. And we made that very clear as a team up front. And with our culture, I think it was very easy to approach the whole process in a way so that it wasn't going to affect how other guys were going to see the things that I'm doing. And I've been able to kind of handle that by bringing other guys into relationships with the people that I've been able to make relationships with, to bring them along on certain deals or to do deals in a way that involves other players to kind of keep that relationship positive. And that's why I'm so kind of grateful for how I've handled it and for how our team has handled it, because there hasn't been any of that animosity that I've heard that there is happening in some other locker rooms. And I'm just so glad that it's been able to play out that way. But it's definitely a kind of a touch and go kind of situation. You don't want to go at it too hard, but at the same time, I want to kind of make sure that I'm taking advantage of the opportunities that do come to me. But I don't want it to affect our team and our ultimate goal as a team.
So it sounds like your culture in your locker room is good. Touch on Coach Stoops and how he's addressed the team and played a role in that.
Yeah, he's definitely an old school guy when it comes to this, and I think all these coaches, it's all very new to them. And while they do understand that these are opportunities that we kind of have to jump at and have to capitalize on. They want to make sure that we are doing it in a mature way that isn't going to affect the culture of the team. And I think that all of us as a team have done a great job at adhering to those wishes of Coach Stoops. And there's a lot of things going on in the NIL space, whether it's the recruiting side or it's kind of the natural side of current players representing brands for advertisements and endorsements. And I think that for me, as someone whose ultimate goal is to play at the next level, it's been important to kind of keep in mind that if I'm going to put myself in the best position to be received as someone who really truly cares about football and football first, I'm not going to be spending too much time and too much energy on the NIL space and gaining as much attention and money right now, because I know that the payoffs for the ultimate goal are going to exceed what can be gained at this point.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting, Shannon, when you look at how On3 does its valuations for, student athletes, and then you look at, performance, right? And there's a performance rating, influence, there's an influence rating, and then exposure. Right now, the exposure for you, Will, is really high. And so anything you do, especially like last night, your value is going to explode just from a moment like last night. Now, on the other side, if it goes a different direction, your value can go a different way. I believe last week, Shannon, On3's NIL valuations for Anthony Richardson doubled from his win over Utah. I'm sure it's backed down a little bit from his loss last night. Like, that's just reality. Performance and then the exposure of these moments is huge. And so for you, really, NIL is not about necessarily taking a bunch of initiative right now on social and growing your influence. It really is about just ball. And so I think that has to make Coach Stoops and the team feel really good. And I know you're not really doing a lot of activity right now either during the season. You're focused. Talk about that decision, because in the off season, in the summer, you were doing a bunch with NIL. You came to our summit. You went to a few really awesome events. Maybe you could tell the story about going to the match in Vegas. You did some really fun stuff, but like, that's over. You're focused on football right now.
Yeah, exactly. The off season's different, and during the season, you want to make sure that you're focused on ball. And also, I know that a lot of the commitments that I made in the off season, I still have outstanding kind of agreements that I have to adhere to throughout the season, and those are things that I needed to stay on top of. Even though I might have signed those contracts a couple months ago, those social posts that these companies are asking for, to their expertise and smart of them, they want us to be posting throughout the season. So I kind of had to sit down with my representatives and the people that I work with and to see kind of the companies that I need to be doing these promotional posts for throughout the season. And I realized that it's a couple dozen of these types of, and I don't really feel comfortable taking on too many of these. And that's kind of why I've taken a step back with really pushing forward on that front. But the off season was a lot of fun, and with the first off season as college athletes to really experience these type of things, my really drive and what drives me as a person and as a student athlete is I want to make the most of my opportunities, and I want to have a great life. I want to live a fun life. I want to live life to the fullest. That's my why, while at the same time making sure that I'm preparing myself as an athlete, as a student, to put me in the best position to bring me to my ultimate goal, which is to play at the next level. And that provided me a lot of really cool opportunities, like you said, to go to the match, to go to the Masters, and to do some really cool NIL stuff that I think that were really unique and that kind of turned a lot of heads, and to use my charisma and my personality to my advantage to help these other companies, and at the same time helping myself and my image and my brand. But like you said, right now I'm not really looking too much to do anything new, because I do know that I have some outstanding stuff that I have committed to for these other companies. But you never know. I mean, I'm keeping myself open, and if there's some no-brainers that come about, those are the things those decisions that I have to make as the season goes. But for now, my main focus is on ball, and I'm lucky enough to put myself in a position where I'm finishing my master's right now this semester, and my class schedule isn't too arduous that I have to be spending too much time on school, even though that is one of my priorities. But I am able to just mostly focus on bettering myself as a football player.
So calling a spade here, you had a monster win, talked about nationally, and we talk to the collectives. We have a big network here, and there's no question that donations go into collectives on big wins. They work around that. Uh, no question, your valuation is going to absolutely grow. After this past weekend. So how do you look at that? We expect that there will be a lot more deal flow coming your way. Are you ready for that, and can you maintain that balance going forward?
Yeah, I'm not really too tuned into what kind of our university's collective situation is. To be honest, I don't really even know that we have one. I mean, you hear a
Yeah.
lot of people talking about these deals about either recruits or transfers and how much money they're getting, this and that. But I'm really more focused on the organic kind of real deals that NIL was truly kind of
Yeah.
developed for. And I think that just as a person that represents these brands and how I'm going to represent brands in my future as a professional athlete, I'm using it as an opportunity to show my worth to these brands and to show how I'm able to effectively advertise for these people in the correct manner. But really not too much focus on the collective kind of standpoint.
I think that's interesting point. You are also part of the 1% of NIL now that has not just an agent, but a pretty high level agency representing you. And not, many athletes are going to have that opportunity. I think the biggest difference between pro and college is college athletes generally don't have agents, and all of them don't have a players association, which makes it harder to do NIL, right? We talked about
Yep.
that a lot at the NIL summit from stage. You have representation. You had a lot of different firms want to represent you for NIL. You chose one, and that has to at least offset some of even the demand coming from a win like last night. Like, you don't have to necessarily filter all those requests. And even with fulfillment, like you said, you signed contracts before that you have to fulfill. You have some help with the fulfillment of the deals too. So the deal making and fulfillment comes with some assistance from a firm.
Yeah, I mean that helps me so much for a brand to reach out to me and for me to just hand an email out and be like, "Hey, have this person handle it. I don't want to deal with that." And if they're and my representatives are looking at it and think that and they're on the same page as me and they think that it is an opportunity that makes sense for me and my goals because we're on the same page, then we'll take it a step further. But if not, I don't have to hear about it again. So I mean, that's just one kind of less thing that I have to worry about. And I know some people have signed with agencies, some haven't, but for me, I think that to have representatives on my side that I trust and I know that have my best interests at heart and know where my priorities are at, it's able to help me kind of maintain my focus on the main thing, which is, like we said before, just playing good ball.
And I think just for listeners and viewers, like, it's not as much as you might think with, the big time agencies coming down into NIL. There's a risk that the big agencies feel in working with football or basketball players. Will, you're not signed to an agency as a pro, right? Like, you're signed to get help with NIL. And that's something, Shannon, that I think is pretty interesting about NIL is just how the agencies have tried to figure it out. And for you, Will, from last year when you hadn't played a game yet as QB1 at Kentucky to this year, you've only had more attention from the agents.
Yeah, and kind of starting the process of vetting agencies for both on-field representation and marketing and just financial advisors. It's a whole new space, and I'm glad that I was able to dive into that before the season started and to make the connections that I wanted to, and to have the conversations that I wanted to have before the season started, so that I wasn't having these people kind of hitting me up left and right and trying to plead their case for me. I was glad I was able to kind of get that all out of the way. But these companies that do represent people on the professional level, I think some of them jumped in kind of right when NIL became a thing. Some waited back and wanted to see the space mature a little bit before they took initiative in it. But I'm really letting that affect my decision on the next front. I think there's a bunch of people that are able to do a lot of great things, both on this level and the level above here. And obviously, there's no contract negotiation agents at the college level. It's just marketing for NIL. And I've been able to make some really great connections that have been able to help me make that decision a lot easier when the time comes to make a final decision after the season.
Will, are there, NIL is confusing for a lot of people. There's a lot of, it's unclear in a lot of ways. Are there any rule changes as it relates to NIL that you would like to see, or do you feel that you're well represented and you have a really good handle, on the space?
Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, maybe, I don't know how it would happen logistically, but I think the universities, I think there could be more people or programs in place to help these student athletes kind of attack this in the best way possible, opposed to kind of just telling them what is legal and what isn't legal and putting them all on themselves. It would be really cool to kind of see some sort of process for learning for these student athletes, whether it's just in their freshman year when they first get here, to give them kind of an idea of what to expect in this space, because I think there's a lot of kids that might be starting and really don't know what they're doing and could be trusting people that shouldn't be trusted, or doing things that could be getting them trouble, that these universities could help with. But as I understand it, how the rules are right now, the universities are very limited in what they're able to provide for the student athletes, other than from a compliance standpoint and telling them what they can and can't do legally. So I think if there was just more kind of guidelines put in place through certain type of rulings that the universities are able to provide to help guide their student athletes in the right ways and to push them in the right direction. That's one thing that I could think of. I don't know how easy that could be. I'm sure it would be kind of a hard thing to understand, but that's one thing that comes to mind.
Well, and the reality is student athletes are very busy, right? They've already got classes. They've got a lot of responsibility between film and workouts, playing, practicing as an athlete. And a student athlete might need help when it comes to an injury, and there's a team doctor that the school has that can help them through that injury. Student athlete might need help with something academically, and you can get a tutor. But yet with NIL, if you have a question about a contract, unless you have an agent, there's really nobody that can help you through that. And I think you are seeing other schools in states that don't have such serious limitations on school involvement start to add either full-time staff or a contracted organization that has full-time employees that are on campus and able to help do some of the things that your agent does for you, but for all student athletes, answering a contract question, helping them negotiate a contract. Once they've signed a contract, helping them fulfill the deal. And I think you're right. Like, that is a huge void. 2022 and especially 2023 are going to add that. And so I think, my question to you would be, from a standpoint of networking at the NIL summit or talking to other student athletes at other schools in the SEC or even your former school's Penn State, like, what are some differences you've seen or some stories of note that you've heard of that are interesting about NIL so far?
I think it probably roots itself in the creativity of the individual. I think that there's a lot of student athletes with a great base, with great following, and like we talked about before, your true value in NIL is rooted in your performance on the field, on the court, or what have you. But they just might not have the resources at hand, or just kind of the finesse to use and to create these kind of promotions for these companies, because that's pretty much what NIL has come down to, is just kind of social media promotion for these different brands. And if it's just kind of a video of you standing in front of a camera, kind of telling these people to go do something, rather than having a strategy, a creative strategy with a team to go and to make a production, to make people more likely to follow the initiative that you're set out front to do, and to get people to buy into what the campaign is really aiming to do. That's probably the most important thing. I think a lot of the people that I met at the NIL Summit, they were just so creative in the different initiatives that they took on, and in most of them it was just kind of on their own. They just kind of had this kind of innate ability to create content that people are encapsulated by, and some people that comes naturally to, and some people it's not, and that's just kind of the way it is. But if there's kind of things put in place, or people are surrounded by the right people to help them understand those things, once they're able to use those tools and to create that content that is most beneficial for these companies to use and to promote, that's really where the value comes in and what they're really looking for at the end of the day.
Will, before we let you go today, this is a platform that we want to use to help athletes. Okay, and so, right now you are at the top of the top as it relates to quarterbacks. So think back right now. What would you tell the elite high school quarterbacks right now? I mean, they're when their dominoes fall, it's all the recruiting. It sets a stage for everything right now in team building. How would you address these high school athletes, these elite quarterbacks, when looking for a school? How much of an emphasis on the support system, NIL? You've got a lot of experience in that now. How do you look at it now versus how you looked at it coming out of school?
I think it's just being the best that you can be in all that you can do. I think that if you're someone who's just focused on football or just focused on your sport, and you want to be the best you can be athletically at that position, sure, you're going to get scholarship offers and you're going to get attention to go play at the next level, and you're going to be a great player. But if you're able to embrace all the other things that are put into your lap, whether it's academics or your social life, even just the ability to communicate with other people and the friends that you make, if you're able to be just a diverse human being who is just multifaceted, and are able to communicate with other people, and to promote yourself as an individual that people want to represent, it's not going to take away from the effort that you put into at your athletic level, even though that should be something that is at the forefront of your mind. If you're someone who's just a great person at the end of the day, you're going to put yourself in a great position for success, both athletically, in NIL, and in anything that you're going to do after college sports.
I love it, man. I love it. I think, what's so fun about you, Will, is I know you live that. And I think that's why it's worked for you at Kentucky. I mean, you just were sharing an NIL deal with your offensive lineman for dinner right before you got here, right? Talking about, really doing things as a team. And a lot of people said NIL was going to ruin locker rooms, but NIL doesn't ruin locker rooms. People will ruin locker rooms. And
Yep.
you're a great person without NIL. Before NIL, you were a great person. Before you were QB1, you were a great person. And now you just happen to be a great person who's also a QB1 and doing NIL right. I think for people watching and listening, that's what you got to understand. NIL is just another part of the overall college athletics experience that's now possible. And
No
I
doubt.
love watching how you've added that, to your persona. So well done.
Thank you so much. I mean, just trying to keep being who I am and to be the best that I can be in all things that I can do. And in the NIL space, is, even though that's something new, I kind of get it, and I want to make sure that I just continue to do it the right way, just like I try to do it the right way on the field, as a person, as a student, and in everything else that I do.
Congratulations.
And in the weight room, man, in the weight room, and on the golf course. You should have
Heck
saw this
yeah.
guy on the golf course recently.
I gotta improve there for sure, but I'm getting better.
You probably
Did
don't
you
have time.
watch the?
You don't have time for that.
Will, did you watch the PGA Championship?
Yeah, I did. Yes.
So was it fun for you to watch the hole where the dance floor, the par three, where the dance floor is on its own little peninsula and there's nothing but water in between the tee box? Because I do have a video of you hitting that shot better than some of the
Yep.
pros at East Lake. We might have to show that, Josh, producer of the show. We might have to show that clip. Can we have your permission to show that
Yeah,
clip as
I
part
mean,
of
granted,
our
I
promo for the show?
I don't know where the championship tees were at, but I think I was only 160 out, where they won 210 out. But I did get that in for par, put it to about 15 feet, and hit a terrible putt. But hey, I stuck it, and that's all that matters.
I love it. Well, thanks for joining us, brother. It's good to see you. Good luck the rest of the season.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate you tuning in to the LeverUp podcast, available right now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure you subscribe, and make sure you subscribe to both the On3 and Influencer YouTube channels, where you can catch all the video content, cut-ups, mashups from all of the LeverUp podcasts. And of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram as well at On3 and at Influencer. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and stay tuned for more great guests to come on the LeverUp podcast.